Hey, welcome back to Laurence McKenna channel. It's good to have you guys. I want to talk a little bit about the game against Ipswich, but also just wider things that are going on at the moment. We've had a lot of feedback from a lot of different people on the channel recently. Thanks to everyone who's been supporting the channel. But particularly, I wanted to talk about SlotBall, the slot era, the beginning of that, and how actually a lot of what Liverpool are doing is not even upgrading, but showing the brilliance of some of the veterans within the side and coaching up some of the other people alongside them. I think first of all, you want to celebrate Mo Salah. Mo Salah, 9 in 9, the most scoriest player on the first day of the season or the first game week of the season ever. He scored more than Frank Lampard, he's now top of that, and these are obviously the lovely graphics that Liverpool put out to show us all the different teams he scored against. Probably showing us, by the way, that Liverpool have always, obviously there's a couple of different games in there in the West Ham, and we've had a couple of weird results at the start of seasons, but showing us that Liverpool have actually started seasons relatively well. Having said that, Arne Slot is the first manager to get his first Premier League game in the last 33 years as a win. So, take that how you will. Obviously, Klopp started midway through the season and weird things were happening then. But let's talk about that opening day fixture. This is a great celebration, first of all. I think it comes from a guy who is still feeling like he has a lot to offer the team and was probably written off at one time. I was relatively hot on looking at the option of him going to Saudi if we got a lot of money for him. But now that he's stayed, now that he's come back with a new buzz cut and he's feeling good about himself, he's looking more like this. And the Liverpool front line is thriving off of that. What I really enjoy is, obviously I watched the Manchester United game, I watched the Liverpool game, watched a little bit of that Arsenal game as well. You see the difference in the three teams there. Now, you see them at different stages in their life cycle. Arsenal, very far progressed in their life cycle. A dominant team, a team that are very calm in the way they play, very sure of their identity, great depth, and all these kind of things. Manchester United, not so sure of their identity, but beginning to see that calcify. And they've had a little time where they could almost become a little bit, how can I put it, like passive towards their identity. Liverpool very much embracing their new identity. Liverpool doing what I've called the basics. Now, it's a very basic and simple way of breaking it down, but as I break it down, I think you'll get it. Obviously, Salah's a huge part of that. Obviously, Virgil van Dijk is a huge part of that. But what was interesting was hearing about them in training, hearing about them in places where you wouldn't necessarily get that insight. They were talking about how flicks, little round the corner moves have been removed from some of the Liverpool training. And you can see it in the possession on the ball already. Liverpool and Klopp would have moved the ball very differently in a time like this against someone like Ipswich. There would have been different ball rotations, and whilst we were trying to dominate possession, especially in the Thiago era, I think the possession and the calm possession that we now dominate with is not as stifling, I think, in the same way as the Klopp era was. You see the way that we get on the ball, move, and we're away, get on the ball, move, and we're away. Like, the ball moves and circulates so much quicker than in the Klopp era. And frankly, I think Liverpool's decision-making is already a lot clearer. Having said that, there is still some complexity in the side that we need to break down. And obviously there are some slotisms I think that we need to get used to. I picked out 4 players for some of that complexity, and I wanted to just run through them a little bit. Obviously, this guy is a massive part of that complexity. Trying to fit him into the team in the first place is a complex task. He's a right back who wants to move into midfield. He's got an incredible passing range. Not only that, but with that passing range and the progress that he wants to make downfield, you kind of need to cover a little bit in behind him, which I'm not sure Liverpool did in that first half. But that passing range, and also very simple passes that he picks out, or the difficult passes that he makes look simple, or the pass before the pass, it was really key because he got the pass before the pass a couple of times for Liverpool, and you can see his relationship with someone like Salah, his relationship with someone like Jota, his relationship with Diaz out on that other wing is really key to the way that Liverpool move, or at least that Slot's chosen to move under this new Liverpool look. Diaz, of course, got a lot of criticism on my live stream yesterday, not from me necessarily, but from the comments. A lot of people feeling he could have done more, could have moved differently, probably should have come away with the goal. Some people saying if this was prime Mane, then he probably would have scored 5. We created a lot of big chances, I've got to admit that. But I actually think that Diaz, I feel good about Diaz right now. I feel like he's got a very high ceiling in this Liverpool team. And if we were to get rid of him, I've got to admit, I'd be a little bit disappointed because I would feel like there was more to get from him that we never quite saw if he was to leave. Maybe that's not the point here. Obviously, we know what this guy does. We know about the complexity of Mo Salah. We know, and what I really enjoy now is, I think a lot of people thought when Salah was part of the team under Klopp, which was pretty much always, that he was very much front on, face to goal, and that's still very much a huge part of his game. But there was a really obvious run that he made. And you obviously see a lot of this more in pre-season. It seems a lot more natural to players later on in the season. But in pre-season running into this era, you see a lot more of players going, oh, I've got to be here because he's here. I'm going to very obviously run to that area to make it kind of clear, not only to my teammate, but also to the manager that I'm kind of doing this thing. And Salah did that very deliberately when Bradley came on. Obviously, when Trent was on, he was a little bit more running at goal. When Bradley came on, he would kind of drop inside and there'll be this overlapping run there. It was really nice to see. It's someone that I thought, well, have we seen the maximum of what it has to offer the team? The answer wasn't no, but at the same time, obviously, someone like Mo Salah, you would expect, well, hey, you've had a great career, you've done a lot of great things. But that motivation doesn't just drop off a cliff, and this guy clearly wants to get, just the maximum out of his career. I'd love to see him retire at Liverpool. Then there's this guy. Let's talk about Ryan Gravenberch. A conflicting player, I think, last season. But this season, under this Slot tenure, he is currently our starting 6. Even if you look at the average positions, right? That's second half. First half, that's the 2 fullbacks tucked in. Guess what? Alongside Ryan Gravenberch. Second half, guess what? That's 1 fullback tucked in, 1 a little wider. Alongside the only guy dropping a little bit deeper in Ryan Gravenberch. Now, that doesn't mean that Szoboszlai and McAllister didn't come in, and it doesn't mean that there wasn't a double pivot of Gravenberch and Szoboszlai. I definitely think there was, certainly at different points. But with Liverpool's progress and complexity within the game, and really just our dominance, we didn't really need to have that double pivot in the same way. It was kind of a temporary double pivot. It was one that when we were going forward, Gravenberch was there, and then suddenly whoever was alongside him was not there because they were part of the attack. Other teams, it feels a bit more obvious because 2 sit, because they're kind of a little bit more, static. This was like, give, go, give, go. I don't think McAllister had a classic game, but I think Szoboszlai definitely had a very active and visible game. You can see in the second half, by the way, but like Liverpool don't evacuate this area here because we just didn't have Jota. But you see when Gravenberch came on, when Gravenberch was holding there and Gakpo came on, Liverpool just pretty much doubled down on getting the ball wide, trying to play a little bit more into a Salah moving more into this kind of area, Diaz moving inside like that, him coming around the outside or coming around the inside, and suddenly all these interchanges were working so much better for Liverpool, or just working very well. Still interested to see what we do with this guy, because McAllister's not a conundrum for me, but he's certainly one of those players, I don't know, how can I put it? He's certainly one of those players that I think has a very high ceiling under Klopp. But I also think he's going to get asked to do a lot of the complex doggy work that maybe other players don't feel capable. Maybe I think there are a lot of self-sacrifices in this team, but I certainly see that he's one of those guys who's good at reading the game and he sees what Liverpool need in that moment. Speaking of which, I want to talk very quickly about Martin Zubimendi and the fact that we missed out on him. I'm not saying that Gravenberch is that 6. I'm not saying that, necessarily we will play the exact same role as Martin Zubimendi. I think Zubimendi's a different ball kind of mover. He feels slightly more active. I went back and did a bit of research about him. This was actually a Feyenoord team that I was sort of like, would he fit in like this? This was actually more of the Trent role here, the Gertrude type role in that game. This was more of a Mats Weifer type role that maybe you'll see Trent play kind of a hybrid of the two, but definitely see Gravenberch play. You can see there, like, look, that is really the Trent for me, and that's the Gravenberch for me. I think we don't realize really what we're missing out on. Like, this is, again, the basic first edit of Liverpool. This is, what we're looking to achieve in the long run will look a bit more complex than this. Of course, Slot's a great manager. Of course, he's very good at getting his ideas over. But the reality of SlotBall is that in the long run, scoring a lot of the complex or easy goals that we did, they seem like quite simple, straightforward goals, won't always be that simple, especially against good sides. And you'll see Gravenberch push to his very limits, I think. Not that I think he's all that limited, I think he's a great player who can look up, but you'll see this midfield pushed. You'll see the shape of this midfield adapt. And I think what we really saw was how great Slot is at giving so much detail to these players at half time and basically going, here's the basics. We didn't win this because of this, this, and this. If you adjust this, this, and this, and up the intensity over here, here, and here, we'll win the game. That's obviously a very basic way of putting the very intense and detailed feedback, which will have been prepped over a week and then given during a game. But I think it's just worth kind of shouting out that this is 1.0. You remember, obviously, I watched that documentary that Sky put out called Gaffer, and you saw Brendan Rodgers left, and in comes Klopp. Now, mid-season, people sort of go, right, okay, you don't have much time with the players, all these kind of things. Obviously, Slot got a pre-season, which is great. But the point that kind of resonated with me was the players have become quite tired, I think, of what Rodgers had to offer. And Klopp came in, and the basics even just felt like huge lifted weights from them and upgrades. Not that it was an upgrade, I think Rodgers is a great manager, but it felt like a change is as good as a rest, as I've said a long time under Slot. And people looked reinvigorated. But there were a couple of guys in there where I thought, okay, what is it that your role is? People were getting frustrated with Andy, they were getting frustrated with McAllister, and they were getting frustrated with Quansah. And some of that criticism came from the fact that the English press jumps on people like Quansah when they get taken off, because that's just a really kind of crude, stupid way of saying, you didn't have a good game, the manager took you off. He's a young player. Konate's a world-class centre-back. I think we'll be all right, thanks. But he was right. I mean, it's a very simple criticism slash, like not complex criticism, but I guess feedback that he got. We don't want to play like this, we want to play like this. It's not humiliating. You're in a fantastic world-class side. Robertson, I still think we're looking for someone on that left side. I enjoyed what Tsimikas did. I think Robertson was very good going forward in terms of just putting those crosses in. They didn't come to much, was my frustration. But very often you're looking for the second ball or to pull someone over so that then when the ball comes back out, you're ready to go. And at the same time, I felt like he was really solid defensively, as was Van Dijk, to be honest. Like, it was just an overall solid performance from those guys. And then I'm still looking at these two wide guys. The relationship up front between these two and why there isn't a striker in between. I can't wait to see Nunez coming in. I can't wait to see the surprise and the 2.0, 3.0, 1.1, 1.3, whatever you want to call it, these different progressions of the side. Curtis Jones still hasn't played there. Endo still hasn't played there. I think, to an extent, this was showing the limitations of the squad under SlotBall and what strengthening really means under Slot, but also where the team is going. Of course, Salah's incredible. Of course, Diaz is incredible. These guys are all incredible, high-end football players. We have loved and do love them all, but we're looking at the long term here under SlotBall. I actually do wonder if, Zubimendi had come in, what that would have meant for McAllister, what it would have meant for Ravenberg, what it would have meant for a couple of these guys in terms of where they would sit. But he didn't. And now Liverpool will probably look elsewhere, because I think we're going to try and make Ravenberg that 6. Now I've said that, we'll probably sign a 6. I think Szoboszlai has shown his dynamism, and I think he deserves a lot more credit than he got. Personally, for me, he was a bit of a man of the match type figure. It just is what it is. And then finally, you've got Bradley out there. I think Bradley will see a lot more of what he is capable of. Interested to know what you guys think in the long run. Yeah, let me know in the comments below, and I'll chat to you guys in a little while. Much love. Bye.